Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want you to wait much longer, so we shall start right now. Welcome once again. Thank you for being with us and joining us on this special occasion. Today's debate is the first in a series of 6 debates held as a part of the Polish Asian Zbliżenia 2021 forum organized by Gazeta Bankowa and the portal about and w Gospodarce.pl, the portal about Polish and worldwide economy. The honorary patronage over the forum was taken by Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, as well as the Ministry of State Assets, the Ministry of Infrastructure, and the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. The main partner of the forum is DEBATA Polska. I would like to cordially welcome our participants. Today we have with us Izabela Olszewska, Management Board Member of Warsaw Stock Exchange. Good morning. Nienke Fenstra, General Manager of DEBATA Poland.
Good morning.
Hello. Wojciech Krawczyk, Deputy Director of Department of Analysis and Reporting, Ministry of State SS. Good morning. Sonia Buchholz, Chief Economist of Konfederacja Lewiatan, will be joining us soon. And please welcome Jerzy Bielewicz, financier and journalist of Gazeta Bankowa. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Maksymilian Wysocki, Managing Editor of Gospodarce.pl, the Polish news, economic news web portal. And for starters, I think we have to ask ourselves the main question, and which is, do we actually need Asian investors in Poland? And for this question, I would like to address, first of all, to Ms. Fenstra.
I think any economy is helped by having investors from different sides. No matter what the topic is, we face immense challenges right now. The COVID epidemic is a clear example of it. And those are challenges that are too big to address by anyone by themselves. Having the viewpoints from different organizations, different countries, different cultures can enrich the debate, and through that help us get solutions closer that, for example, in the face of healthcare, can help Polish patients get better treatment sooner. So I think we always need all investors possible to enrich debate, get better outcomes through the creativity that you get from leveraging different viewpoints.
With DEBATA Poland especially, it is good to ask about the quality of the healthcare system and healthcare investments, because we need a healthy society more than ever right now.
Yeah. Yes, we definitely need that. We have seen last year that a healthy society is a productive, a happy and engaged society. The COVID epidemic has put everything upside down. And the challenges we already saw that the healthcare challenges existed in Poland. Everyone knows that. And the government is doing its best to address them one by one. And all those objectives were being challenged by this epidemic. So we need to make sure that we can partner with all partners in healthcare, whether it's healthcare professionals, medical institutions, hospitals, the government, but also pharmaceutical companies like Takeda, because together we can all bring a piece of the puzzle to help reach outcomes for Polish patients. And knowing what happens in other countries, for example, also in Asia, can bring solutions that work also to Poland. And I think that is something that we can leverage more than we currently do. The advantage of working with a global player like Takeda means that we know what works to bring not only, for example, drugs to Polish patients, but also solutions that increase the value of those drugs, health solutions, different ways to look at how you structure healthcare. When we discuss these things in close partnership with healthcare providers, institutions, and the government, I think together we can reach progress much faster. And that is especially in times of the pandemic very much necessary.
Thank you for this insight. Let's have the perspective of the stock market. If you would be so kind, Ms. Olszewska, Management Board Member of Warsaw Stock Exchange, please. the same question.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much for your question and for your kind invitation to take part in this conference. So yes, I represent in this debate the capital market in Poland and the Warsaw Stock Exchange. And I would like just to approach this question from a slightly different point of view. So I just want to focus on stock market investors. And so there are the investors who become the owners of the companies through their trading on the stock markets. And the Asian investors and the Asian markets, they represent the pool of huge capital. And the global capital is, in my view, absolutely necessary for the development of the stock market and just capital market in Poland. And because the stock exchange is an important part of Polish economy, so we can say indirectly that the global capital from Asia is also necessary for development of our national economy. But let's be clear here, and when we talk about Asia or Far East, so we cannot refer to this place as a one place, because it's kind of lazy language. It is not one place, in fact. And in Asia, we have a mix of mature financial markets and less mature financial markets. And as a Warsaw Stock Exchange and also our listed companies, we approach these markets very selectively. And for example, the investors from South Korea, they prefer a real estate sector and they trade in real estate stocks on our market. Whereas National Pension Fund from Japan, they are the buyers of government bonds because they like stable, long-term investment. In turn, Japanese institutional investors, they like the companies from technology sector and other sectors which are connected with the technology. So Hong Kong is a hub of high-frequency traders. So there are the guys that trade everywhere in the world and trade on a high-frequency basis. So it means that they are the owner of the shareholder or the shareholders of the companies for a very short period of time. For example, even for some seconds. But they are also very important because they provide liquidity to the market, and the better liquidity, the better condition for investors and the lower cost of trading. So just one more market like Singapore, this is the hub of hedge funds, and the hedge funds, they are alternative investors. They use the pooled funds to employ very aggressive and different strategies to generate as high return on investment for their investors as possible. So all these investors, they are different, but they all are needed for the development of our markets.
So bringing this all up, you said that they are crucial, and by this you mean that they are crucial because the high volume and the broad mix of interests about the categories, right?
Yes, and also the Asian financial centers, they are very big. This is the huge pool of capital. So, and of course, our role as the exchange is to bring this capital to Polish companies, because as the exchange, we create the link between our companies who look for the capital for further development and the investors. And what I just would like to underline that these capital centers in Asia, they are going to develop very quickly, and also it will be a bigger and bigger pool of capital. And in March, the company from London, ZEN Group, published as usual every year they publish the Global Financial Center Index. And what is interesting for us that out of 10 global places which are on the top of this list, 6 they are from Asia Pacific region, and this is Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, and 3 centers from the mainland China, like Beijing, Shenzhen, and Shanghai. So when we extend this view on 15 first places, so we need to add also Gift City from India and also South Korean market. So we can see what it means, Asia and Far East in the terms of the pool of capital for us. So we spend a lot of time just contacting the investors and through our global partners, brokers, banks, and pass the information through them to investor what we can offer them in Poland. And I think that there are some advantages on the side of our economy, and also we can present Warsaw Stock Exchange and our main sectors, which last year, especially last years, the companies from the sectors, they developed very well. This is gaming, biotech, new technologies, all these fintechs, and e-commerce. So we can present to the investors our sectors. And this should be done on very regular basis, because the lack of awareness of the market is the one of the main obstacles why these investors, they can choose another markets in Europe than Poland. So we need just to have this constant approach, education, spreading information, and contacts with the Asian investors.
It's a part of our job, raising the awareness of the potential of our market. That's one thing. Let's have an intake about the potential activities on the other side, like making a gain in global, international economic play. And let's hear it from Mr. Jerzy Bielewicz, journalist of Gazeta Bankowa. Do we need this? And do they need us?
It's very rhetorical question. I live in Asia for 2 years, and I live in America for several years, and I could observe the changes in world economy with my own eyes. For example, in America, you could see the shift from Atlantic region to Pacific region. And it's very strong, and it has been taking quite a bit of time. I observe America being there in late 80s and early 90s, and cities like Vancouver, Seattle, ports just boomed at that time. And it was long time ago before we here in Poland realized the changes in economic patterns, and we right now recognize them. So the growth is in Asia, the growth is in Pacific region, and everybody knows it. And that's the way to go if we'd like to grow in Poland. And especially companies like Takeda, which is a biomedical company, or it's a good bet in Poland because of our location in the center of Europe. We've got very good internet services, and it's an ideal place for headquarters for Asian countries to do business in Europe. No wonder that we, for example, are number one in transportation in Europe, with a 25% of this sector in Europe. No wonder that our impulse just acquired company in France. I would say it very provocatively that the world economy stands on its head as 20 or 30 years before. Then it was Atlantic region, not right now it's a Pacific region. And Poland, with its location, is a beneficiary of these changes. And yes, that's our bet, and that's the way to go.
Thank you very much, Jerzy. So all eyes are on Pacific region right now, not on Atlantic region anymore. Ms. Sonia Buchholz, Chief Economist of Konfederacja Lewiatan, has joined us. Hello. But before I would ask Ms. Buchholz a question, I would like to hear an intake from Wojciech Krawczyk, the Deputy Director of Department of Analysis and Reporting from Ministry of State Assets. So do we actually, from your perspective, need Asian investors in Poland?
First off, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be here and to discuss these extremely important topics such as investments in Poland. I believe this forum is a great place to voice opinions of various stakeholders and then create a better environment for the future cooperation. And I'm especially glad to share this panel with such a distinguished speakers. That being said, I strongly believe that we need investors, Asian investors in Poland. As we know, all Asian countries and their investments play an important role in the world's economy. Poland successfully competes for these investments as one of the leaders in the FDI, foreign direct investments in 2019 in the Eastern European region in that respect. In the last decades, Poland was more directed to investments from the Western European Union or United States. However, partners from Asia could play a significant role in the process of risk diversification, as well as gaining new possible financing sources and the know-how. And we think that a lot of areas in Asian countries have an advantage over others in terms of the similar experience that we had in Poland. There are sectors in Asian countries and Poland that are similar, such as reliance on coal and the need for a transition to more sustainable and zero-emission energy sector. And I would like to focus a little bit on that because from the perspective of the Ministry of National Assets, or State Assets, we see Asian companies as partners in our enterprises. So, for example, in the energy sector, I myself worked on one power plant in Poland, in Kozienice, and there was a partnership between Mitsubishi Hitachi and Polimex Mostostal. The partnership was distributed between these 2 or 3 companies. Polish company was responsible for the infrastructure part, and the Mitsubishi Hitachi, they were responsible for delivering like a steam turbine, more or less a technology. So in this regard, I think we extremely need investments from Asian countries. They deliver the know-how, advanced technologies, and innovations. This can, from more macroeconomic point of view, this can stimulate the economy itself by creating a new businesses and partnering, as I said before, partnering with Polish entities. On top of this, there is I mentioned that earlier, but we believe that there is economic similarities between those some of the countries. Reliance on coal is one. Then, for example, Korea. I had the pleasure to live and work in Korea for a couple of years, and they went through a similar economic growth as Poland did. Obviously, they have a little bit different challenges, different structure, demographics, and stuff. But there are similarities that we can take advantage of. For example, learning on their experience, as well as we, as a country which is a little bit more developed to some other countries, such as, for example, Indonesia. They're also highly reliant on coal. Then we will be able to provide some solutions and technologies to these countries. Also, a great opportunity or great benefit from investments from Asian region is in Poland is that this is obviously a job creation. Takeda is one of the examples that well-educated people can find jobs in Poland, and also in another sector, pharmaceutical. And again, this is another similarity between those two markets, Japanese/Korean population is well-educated, so is Polish population well-educated, and we need these jobs. So to sum up maybe, and maybe to modify a little bit your question, I think we need Asian investors, as well as Asian investors should be present in Poland because of the strategic location, because of the well-educated population. So I think this is a mutual cooperation in the future.
Thank you very much, and let's hear the same answer, well, the different answer, but for the same question from Ms. Sonia Buchholz, Chief Economist of Konfederacja Lewiatan, please.
First of all, thank you for having me here, and I need to excuse myself. So I was late because the National Recovery Plan is being consulted right now. And just like the recovery plan is a driver of structural change in the economy, trade and investment are permanent. So to some extent, trade works like know-how. It makes available goods and services that wouldn't have been available otherwise. And this is why autarkies are economically underdeveloped. And the same applies to capital flows. So the most visible impact is creation of new product capacity that is advanced in the value chains and provides return for both parties. And this is why we are discussing it here and right now, and this is why it should be, this view should be promoted. And when it comes to relations between Poland and Far East, so Poland is a economy, and comparing to populous Far East, we have limited possibilities to satisfy all needs of Polish customers. So the Far East offers us multitude of products, from simple, cheap stuff, just like toys, like clothing, like metal tools, to things that are very technologically advanced, to solutions that are high-end consumer electronics, pharmaceuticals, and so on and so forth. So for the most important feature, the most important feature for both cases is different. So for the former, it is a quality to price ratio, and for the latter, it is a uniqueness, which is the key of this form of trade. So we are not looking for a trade-off between those high-end products and technologically advanced and those simple, cheap products, but we should perceive there as complementary and try to develop, but what is most important, developed in another way. So Poland, even due to the size of its economy, is not an equal partner for the Far East. And let us underline it and emphasize it clearly, because we are successful only in several product categories, including cosmetics, gloves, construction chemicals, and top Polish exports to China is, for example, copper. Yes, this is quite funny thing that if we dig deeper into statistics, we see that top Polish export is copper. Yes, but nevertheless, we should emphasize that the public policy has still space for improvement in capturing new markets and new segments, and especially for the countries which have growing middle class. This might be a very important business opportunity. Nevertheless, we should at the same time create more links. But first and foremost, we should make most of the existing contacts. So by investing in Poland, foreign companies create value added, pay local taxes, create workplace. This is what Wojciech Krawczyk already mentioned. But they also share with us some specific knowledge and typical corporate and national culture, which at some stage starts circulating only because of the fact that people change employers and establish their own companies. So they created, and the business environment should be complementary to FDIs. And this is what should be taken into account by, for example, Ministry of Economy or Ministry of State Assets. We are discussing here the context of Takeda, which is very important from the perspective that this is a high-tech company. So these workplaces are especially important from the perspective of a Polish labor market, because they generate high value added. And this is the case, for example, of R&D centers, but also in general the companies that are representing very knowledge-intensive services and high-tech companies. And in such case, the investor is sharing very firm-specific knowledge, so it needs also an educated staff that is reasonably remunerated. And this is why Poland is very attractive to the major companies, IT companies, but also pharmaceuticals that create high value added. So if it wasn't for this segment, we would have limited opportunity to satisfy our Polish talents, and this is the case which is rarely discussed. So with low value tasks, we wouldn't satisfy them comparing to their knowledge and talents, but also we wouldn't satisfy them with remunerations. So otherwise, if we were attracting only low value tasks, we would be considered pricey comparing to other countries. So to sum up, this is a win-win situation from the perspective of Poland, because if we attract high-tech and knowledge-intensive investors, if we developed our national environment based on these FDIs, and as time goes by, we are developing it regardless of initial boost, we are making most of the opportunity that comes to us. So from this perspective, Far East has an abundance of such investors, and this is why Poland should be should work and make most of attracting them. Okay, so
we might
all.
say that in this case you just got me at hello, and therefore I was so optimistically yes, because this remark is crucial, essential, I think, in all this discussion, that is what makes what makes an investment in Poland a healthy one. What kind of investments we need. So on this topic and on this question, I would this time like to ask Mr. Krawczyk as first, please.
All right. Well, the healthy investments, as we believe here in the Ministry of State Assets, is an investment that increases the productivity of the host country's economy. We can refer to the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations, and this is to ensure the good use of resources, improving energy efficiency, sustainable infrastructure, and providing access to basic services. And we believe that such investments should be targeted at sectors that will contribute to the sustainable growth in the future and to help society to develop. Particularly in Poland, this helps to allow the transfer of technology and allow human capital to develop through employee trainings in the course of operating of the new businesses. And we believe that such investments can be provided by Asian partners. We can also mention a couple of sectors or a couple of areas that we identify as a potential healthy investments in Poland. That would be as I mentioned earlier, the energy sector. And as we face the need of transformation to the more sustainable energy production and energy generation, there's a lot of room for improvement in the aviation sector. We also will be partnering with probably an Asian entity in terms of the infrastructure project, which is the central airport in Poland. And to build more on that, we need a participation in the infrastructure development in Poland, high-speed railways, motorways, as I said, aviation infrastructure. There's also a challenge of
power plants.
right, nuclear power plant and energy security, which comes along with this. But this is something we are in the process of, and nothing, as far as I know, nothing has been decided. And but obviously, Asian partners can play a significant role in this as well. I don't know if I mentioned the motor vehicle industry; they're present already. So this all contributes to this healthy investments that we recognize here at the Ministry of National Assets. But as I said, from our perspective, the most important issue is cooperating with those companies, because from the ownership perspective, we want our companies to grow, to thrive, and in the future to provide the know-how and innovation to other economies and other partners.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's have the same answer. Question for the same question. Let's have an answer from Ms. Venstra, Takeda, Poland.
And healthy investment is one that indeed also returns profits or advantages for both parties. That's quite clear. As several of the other panelists have already said, it's important also for a company like Takeda to work in a country where there's a high level of the high educational level. We are a high technology organization, so we need to work with staff that can make our vision reality and that ask for a certain level of education, which we find here in Poland. We find that for commercial sites, we find that for plants, but we also find that for our shared service center, for example, which we're extending in Łódź, where we know we have the people who can actually realize what we'd like to do. So that's important, because we want to always obviously realize our purpose and our vision. It's also important that we have some predictability. If we invest, obviously, we want to make sure that we get the return out of that. And ideally, we partner to make that happen. So what is important as well, which makes it a healthy investment from our side, is to be at the table when it comes to healthcare challenges. Of course, when in our case of Takeda, when it comes to anything related to medication, but ideally healthcare challenges at large. Since I do think that leveraging the knowledge we have in other countries, the experiences we have in other countries, can indeed be of benefit as well for Polish patients and healthcare professionals. So that's for us why it's important for us to make an investment healthy, to also do that in true partnership, so that we can together shape what would work by understanding each other's challenges, understanding how we can all contribute, and reach an outcome that is satisfactory for Polish patients, healthcare providers, and governments, but also for us, and based on that, can do it sustainably. And that is something that is very important for us as well. There tends to be a cultural difference when it comes to sustainability from some companies in the Far East towards some others. Takeda is a very old company. For over 200 years, we're already active. If we commit to an investment, we want to continue it. But then we need to know we can do that in a sustainable way. That when we invest, we have the people to be able to deliver upon that. Not only today, not only tomorrow, but also 10 years from now. And the same goes for other kinds of investments. We want to make sure that it will also not only deliver the value for Poland, but also for us.
Thank you very much. Is there an issue here? Is it possible even to be at the table, as you said, for all times with the crucial decisions about I assume, the market regulatory you were referring to. So if we would take a quick ad votum from Mr. Krawczyk, is it possible that the foreign investors can be at the table, the decision-making table, for all times?
The discussion in cooperation with the private sector or any other entity is welcome at the Ministry of National Assets. However, we have the role of supervising and maybe from the ownership perspective. So we do not necessarily create the law. We can or legislation. We would like to, and we are happy to hear their voices. I mean, the voices of other entities and other partners. However, from our perspective, we do our best to cooperate with them on the basis on the rules which are already set. And this is more of a question for other ministries. I don't want to dodge this question, but what I'm saying is, from our perspective, any dialogue, any cooperation is welcome, and we would be happy to. I think it's happening on some level, and this is one of the places that we can actually, everybody can voice their opinions. So from my answer is yes, everybody can be present at the table, and everybody should try to get to the table.
Thank you very much. Ms. Venstra, if you would like to add something to your question, because I thought you were.
I was indeed hoping to, and thank you for allowing me to do so. We are very willing, as per the comment also of Wojciech Krawczyk, to do so and offer that dialogue always. I do think we are not there yet where we want to be, and I can also understand that sometimes that is a slow process because you need time to build trust. What we would ask for is the opportunity to create that trust by sharing examples that have worked and by mutual understanding of each other's challenges. And I'm quite sure that then step by step, we get to that point where we can really strengthen each other to the benefit of both.
Thank you. I would like to go back to the main arc and hear the answer for the question about the healthy investments in Poland, what makes them healthy from the point of view of stock markets. So if you please, Ms. Izabela Olszewska, Management Board Member from Warsaw Stock Exchange.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I would like to refer to a couple of points that were mentioned by the panelists. So first of all, just about this healthy, or just maybe I will put it in another word, sustainable development or sustainable investment. It was mentioned by Wojciech. And just I would like to add that this is a very important trend on the capital market. We call it ESG. E means environment, social factors, and G is governance. So it means like corporate governance. And I think that this is very much promoted by global investors, also from Asia. So the global investors, they push the companies listed on the stock exchanges just to include in their daily business and in the strategies the ESG considerations. So this is very important because these companies, they should report how they tackle these ESG factors in their business. And this reporting is crucial for being on the radar of the global investors. If the company does not provide this information to the global investors, so then it is this company is blacklisted, and the investors, they don't want to invest their money in this company. So I think that the global investors and also those from Asia, they push these companies, and they are the catalyst for the changing within our companies, which are public companies. This is very important trend, and I think that it will be shaping the capital and financial markets in the nearest future. So currently, according to the data that I had the chance to see last week, 80% of global investors, they are focused on ESG. So they look at the companies and the goal for their investment, whether they just prefer sustainable development or not. And then this is the main point for further decision, whether to invest in such a company or not. It is predicted that in 3 years, almost 100% of these investors, they will look at ESG factors. So this is absolutely something which is important for us. Then I would like also to refer to what Sonia mentioned. sorry, not Sonia, but Ninke, that just mentioned stable partners here in Poland, and also just that it takes a time to build a trust. So just would like to describe our activities, because this is nothing else than building the trust and creating the good partners on the side of Warsaw Stock Exchange and our companies. So as a management board of our Polish exchange, we have been implementing for a couple of months or even years key initiatives how to build the trust with the Asian investors. And we organize some road shows with our companies. So we take the companies, of course, now there are the online road shows, but we take the companies and we present them to the Asian investors. Also, we record some messages, what's new in our economy, what's new in our legislation, what's new on the stock exchange, and pass this information through our global partners, global banks, to Asian investors. Finally, we have signed MOU with some exchanges in Asia. The recent one was signed with Shenzhen Stock Exchange, and we try to share the knowledge and organize the common marketing around our products. So this is something that can help in building this partnership, building this trust on the capital market. And last but not least, I just want to refer to the regulation legislation, which is also important for bringing the investors to our country. So on the capital market, we have now a very important goal, just to implement the strategy for capital market development. This is the strategy elaborated by the Ministry of Finance together with European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the external consultant. And there are a lot of initiatives inside this document because it has a status of government document. And the majority of these initiatives they focus on removing the gold plating and creating the business-friendly regulations. So I think that this is something that we can bring as the capital market to the table to create for Asian, for Far East investors, a very business-friendly regulations. So, of course, a lot of things is just happening on the capital market. And you know, in this ESG and sustainable development area, but also to create a good framework, good solution, good legislation, and be very competitive in this context of bringing the attention of Asian capital to Poland.
So we have all the voices for trust as the thing that makes the whole thing just healthy, and investment, especially Asian investments, healthy. So let's hear about this trust from Ms. Sonia Buchholz, because I get that there are some issues, but on the other hand, we have unprecedented times and great turbulence in the air and on the ground and on the health system and in the regulatory sphere. And sometimes the thing is that it is very dynamic and needs to change quickly as the situation changes quickly. Or maybe it shouldn't. What's your intake on this? How's the issue with trust in the investments and especially Asian investments?
Okay, so doubtlessly we are facing huge challenges, not only related to pandemic, but also related to the things that are more structural for Polish economy and in general for developed economies. Basically, I would say about population aging. So this is why health is becoming more and more important for us, not only because of COVID and because of pandemic, but also because of the fact that we will need increasing effort to improve healthcare system, to improve the well-being of our elder part of society, and because we need to have people who are longer active in the labor market, and it cannot be possible without additional investment in health. In healthcare, in health service, in pharmaceuticals, and their well-being. So this is our interest, not only because of pandemic, this is our general interest, and it will last longer than 10 years even, not to mention the 1 or 2 years that Ninka mentioned at the very beginning. So so this is the thing that is that should be that should be core interest of politicians and general public policy, regardless of the fact related to economic growth. So this should be a thing that is interesting us because of the social issues. Nevertheless, we're asking about the trust and the contact. So when it comes to Leviathan, Polish Confederation Leviathan, we are the organization that is representing employers and companies, quite large companies, quite maybe more high-tech than on average. And this is why trust is our core value. So this is what we're interested, because we are somehow intermediaries, and we are discussing, and we're at this table between politicians, or in general public administration and cabinet, and between companies. So because of the fact that sometimes we shouldn't just be lobbyists, but we should think about improving our legislation as a value itself. So we are the party that is analyzing what is being done in this legislation and trying to improve it. And we are quite often quite critical, and this is not the best thing that is, and the reception is sometimes very difficult for us. Nevertheless, we believe that we contribute to the quality of Polish legislation and all those conditions that makes business possible, both for companies that are Polish entities and both for international. So this is why we strongly believe that this trust that was mentioned at the very beginning, it is everything. So without trust, we couldn't simply work together.
Yes, but there is trust, and you have, on the other hand, the politics, and I wouldn't like to extend the thing about the trust to the one tech company that we could all basically know, but I guess there's no way of avoiding it. I think Huawei Poland got the worst as in terms of trust and politics and doing business. And so question to Mr. Jerzy Bielewicz, who wrote
just one thing, just one mentioned Huawei. I think that we're working with politicians, but we're working to improve public policy, and this is this slight difference, and this is why we're very into this discussion.
Thank you. Mr. Bielewicz, so you wrote many articles in Gazeta Bankowa about the question of politics, the economic question, the economic war between the USA and China. And well, do we all have an issue with the trust in the sphere of doing businesses with Asia, or is that not the point? Or is there this trust, only there is lack of trust in the sphere of politics? What's your intake on this one?
Trust is very important, especially in Asia. There's the huge cultural difference between us and them, that usually the relationship with Asian business requires a lot of time to establish, but then it goes well. And politics versus business. We are in the middle of it because we are on the Silk Road, and at the same time we are one of the closest allies of the United States. and so be it. And I don't think there is a difficulty in it. We've got to be a close ally of the United States because of Russia, Putin's Russia. On the other hand, China is far, far away from us. I would say provocatively that China for us is what Russia is for France. I would say that we can benefit from the relationships with Asian countries, but it's very important to understand the differences between those countries. For example, Japan is the world leading country if we talk about net investment position. Japan gives a lot of capital into the outside world. Yeah, they have the aging population, but they invested a lot abroad. I think it's about $2 trillion. It's huge, huge net position. And their well-being depends on their investment, as Takada investment in Poland. And to understand this specific is very important, because on the other hand, China was partnering with Japan and is partnering with Japan. The ties are very close. For example, Alibaba, the company that grew with Japanese money and later with the US money. So China, it's different story. China has a huge internal market, and there was a lot of money put into China, and security of this investment is in question, and the legal framework in China. On the other hand, Korea, very good technologies and very expanding industrial side of automation. We've got this investments of LG Chem in Poland in electric batteries. We've got this huge investment in Polityka Polymery by Hyundai engineering company. So it's very, very, I would say that it's probably to Mr. Krawczyk most of all, that it's a lot about knowing your partner and what their strategy is, and about the health of investment. The healthy investment is where the money goes, and the money goes to several sectors right now. Biotechnology and medical sector, e-commerce, electric cars and vehicles, energy sector, very important for us in Poland, because with no stable energy sources, electrical energy sources, we would not be such a good partner. And digitalization and digital services, very, very important, I think, for Takada and for other companies. For example, a good story about Poland is Central Communication Hub, because it makes us very, very important place in value chain. So our partners in Asia have to understand our strategy. For example, Japanese capital is willing to invest in Polish ports. They'd like to invest in a connection between Gdańsk and Odessa in transportation facilities. So they know what we require from them. Korea likes to invest in our nuclear energy sector. They understand what we require right now. For us, it's good to exchange this information with our partners. Yeah, for years I was the representative of capital investment funds. So I saw hundreds of factories, and the capital, the flow of capital is the most important factor for healthy investment. So it's electric cars, it's biotechnology, it's digitalization, it's e-commerce, it's digital banking. That's the sectors we'd like to have investment in Poland. And Takada is a good investment for Poland, because I hope it thinks not only about providing for our local market, but as usually Japanese companies do, they think about expanding to the neighbor markets. It's very, very important for us that the entrants to our market think about not only Polish market, but neighboring markets as well. That's why we have this 3 Cs initiative. And that's why we'd like to expand with digitalization to 3 Cs countries. And if foreign capital, foreign direct investment complies with this strategy, it's a healthy, good investment. And if it thinks in terms of setting up headquarters and expanding abroad from Poland in European Union, and especially in sector, as I mentioned already twice, and I repeat it again, it's digital sector, e-commerce, electric cars, energy sector, and biotechnology, medical sector. That's my answer for healthy investment.
Yes, thank you, Jerzy. You mentioned about compliance. Compliance is crucial when we talk about the companies that are present on the stock market. But on the other hand, Ms. Fenstra mentioned about this trust being most important thing. And well, if there's no trust, then it is very hard to do business. As I understood, it is a crucial thing when an Asian investor is checking out the possibilities of investing in one country. So if we have or might have an issue with trust, then maybe we need some reassurance. What kind of reassurance, or what things would make an investment in Poland healthy in terms of talking about health?
For example,
like what kind of reassurances would the investors like Takada Poland like to see to develop the investments further in Poland?
It's all about money, as always. It's financing of projects, joint ventures, and for example, Poland just come up with the facility to support investment which would expand to the neighboring markets. For example, if Takeda builds a factory in Poland, it may, for example, be beneficiary of state guarantees for its capital. And Polish local firm can get those guarantees, even if their owners are foreign. It's all about financing, all about money flows, stock exchange. Japan is a huge player on the stock exchanges around the world. Japanese currencies, it's a carry trade currency. As I said before, it's different with China and different strategy of China, where Chinese market is a key, I would say, piece of cake for companies from Europe, for Polish company, German company. I'm not sure whether I answer your question, and I have no text on my screen to read, so
That's okay. I wanted to ask this question to Ms. Venstra. So if you please, what makes an investment healthy in terms of what do investors look for when they want to invest more money in business in Poland?
Also building on the comment just made by Mr. Bilevich, it is also on sustainability. If you would, for example, he mentioned the example of a plant, but whatever it would be, you want to make sure that it will be sustainable, that for also the next 10 years, we will have a predictable environment in terms of legislation, in terms of employment, in terms of the yield we would like to get out of whether it's a shared service center or a plant or a commercial organization. And that indeed asks trust, but it also asks a transparency of what will the future look like? Do we already know what that legislation will be like? Everyone is talking a lot about how to invest in the right way in healthcare, not only due to the pandemic, but also, as Sonja Bocholt said, because of the aging population. We need to make sure that any country, and so the same for Poland, is able to deal with the demographic challenge that will ask for more investments in healthcare. Knowing how those investments will be implemented, what the legislation around it will be, is important for investors. Because these challenges are present in Poland, but they're also present in other countries. And every country deals with that in the right way, in their own way. And some things we cannot do in every country. A company like Takeda cannot build a plant in every country in Europe. That's simply too expensive. And it's too, not only from a capital perspective, but also human resource perspective. So we then need to really look, where are we comfortable making those investments, knowing what we think will be ahead in the next 10 years or so, because those are really large investments to make sure that it is healthy, indeed, from both parties.
Thank you. Ms. Buchholz, what's your opinion about the in terms of the firm legislation in Poland, of issues and how to dissolve them, that issues that would surround building the formidable trust of investment?
Okay, so let me say it clearly that 2020 was not a good representative when it comes to environment, business environment, because it was difficult for vast majority of businesses. But keeping in mind those before the pandemic, we have a great macroeconomic situation, and even now it's at least comparable and it's quite good. Let us state it clearly. Nevertheless, the quality of law is quite poor, and it is not a case of law itself. It's case of those legal framework. It's a case of the fact that the law can change one day, and it is not possible to discuss it. It is difficult to consult it. It is quite difficult to predict, and this is what Nienke mentioned. So we need predictability in a sense that that legal framework is a one condition that is taken into account when assessing and forecasting the future profits. So with one framework, it is easier to assess it, and the profits might be higher, comparing to the situation when one night everything changes and we need to start from the scratch. So this is the problem, and this is what is our core business, in a sense that we're dealing with it every day. So we're trying to improve the quality of law, to signal the issues that should be taken into account when law is created, but also to criticize in what is justified, sometimes to remove the parts that are very difficult or could be even harmful for companies. So this is what we're doing. But so while to sum up, while the macroeconomic environment is very good, and even pandemic wasn't a threat for it, the quality of law could be better, and we're doing our best to improve it. But nevertheless, it is quite visible for companies, both small and larger entities, that this should be improved, both quality and predictability of the law.
Thank you very much. Let's hear it from Warsaw Stock Exchange, because as far as I remember, those are the issues also brought up by the companies that are listed on the Warsaw Stock Exchange.
Yes, so I would repeat what just have been said, that predictability of law is absolutely necessary, and also for stock market investors. And what is also important, we compete with other European stock exchanges and capital markets, and even if Asian investors they want to be focused on Europe in some investments. So then, of course, we need to present themselves as a market with a stable law. And also, what is important is no gold plating. It means that we should have the regulation which are friendly, but we don't need much more regulation than, for example, in other European countries, because then, of course, the choice will be other stock exchange than Warsaw Stock Exchange. So this is very important. But also, I think that stability of solution and the infrastructure, the whole infrastructure of the capital market. And here we are talking about the solution of trading, but also trust on the market, also in the post-trade area. So, for example, for settlement and good partners on the market. And of course, we try to do our best together with the regulator, with the supervisor, to create such a very good solution of our infrastructure. And 2 years ago, we were upgraded as a whole market by FTSE Russell to the status of developed markets, which was very quick upgrade. I just want to remind that the history of our market is very short. So this year we will be celebrating very soon in April 30 years of our history. So comparing to the stock exchanges with 100 years of history, so we are a young sister or brother. But anyway, we were upgraded to this status, and it was based on a strict parameters and rules. So they checked all the solutions on the market, and also they communicated with our investors, with the market participants, and they checked their opinion. And on the basis of all this assessment, they decided to give us the status of developed market. What is also important, of course, the investment is always business oriented. So the pool of good companies, and we have here the representatives of sectors which are interesting for Asian investors. So I mentioned in the previous comments that we have very good representatives of, for example, high-tech sector, gaming sector, or biotech, or e-commerce. So all these companies can be found on stock exchange. So this is also important for the investors. And according to Bloomberg data, currently the value of investment of Asian investors on the Warsaw Stock Exchange is around $500 million Polish zloty. Maybe it's not so much, but it's something. And what is important, that we have 5 the biggest Asian funds present on our stock market. So like Amundi Japan, Fidelity from Hong Kong, or Sumitomo from Japan, Tiro from Hong Kong, etc. So 5 big and some others. And they invest in the companies from our VIG20, but not only. Recently, they were interested in also Allegro or CD Projekt, and the companies from the sectors that were, I would say, just the COVID winners. Let me just call it like this, because during the COVID and pandemic time, they managed to develop very well. So we do have currently investors from Asia. We would like to have them more active on the stock exchange, and we can offer them a good infrastructure condition, I would say stable law, and plus good companies listed on our exchange.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wojciech Krawczyk, Deputy Director of the Department of Analysis and Reporting, Ministry of State Assets, the issue on trust. Is there an issue on trust, and is it based on the huge randomness of the changes in Polish law as we heard it before, or is it something else?
Well, to be honest, I can only echo what has been said already. The trust, the the expectation that the law will be more or less stable and is crucial. However, is there an issue? I guess we are in a very difficult time of pandemic. Everything is being done overnight, or in the course of a couple of weeks. This environment doesn't help to develop a stable relationship with any partners in any, or maybe ironically it is. Now I'm thinking out loud, because now we get the idea who can be trusted and who can deliver in this very difficult time. However, we need to understand, or we need to keep in mind that these are not normal circumstances. And whatever is happening right now, I think it should be reiterated in a little bit different dynamic and a little bit different environment in the future. I've seen Ms. Nienke agreeing with me that this unusual time of pandemic could be helpful in terms of recognizing who is a trustworthy partner and who maybe not. So I would like to maybe discuss, hear her voice on that. I know Tekade is a very distinguished and well-established company, and making businesses with such companies should be easy. However, there's a lot of demand for companies that can be trusted, and we've seen this when it came to getting vaccines, and that the countries have struggled with certain amount of doses that they wanted to get. So I guess what I just said is this is an extremely unusual time, and yes, it might help to build a stable relationship in the future. However, this is not I don't think this is a problem of a systematic problem. This is something unusual, and it has to be dealt with special tools, and these special tools are used by almost each government around the world. However, I think this forum is more of the future perspective, and in the future we need another tools, not very maybe more well thought tools to build our partnerships. But from our perspective, this is a moving point. Moving point meaning the business always develops, the policy always develops, the society and the expectations of the society always develops and goes in a little bit different directions. So it's not a question of what is the right regulation or how to get to the right regulation. It's always getting to this point. So I guess what I'm trying to explain that it's a mutual and constant cooperation with all stakeholders, and when it comes to different times as COVID, it can be tested. I mean, those regulations can be tested. And this is also an opportunity to build that trust. I would like to hear more from other partners, from other stakeholders, whether the measures that we've taken here at not at this ministry per se, but other ministries go in the right direction. However, this is a little bit out of scope of the Ministry of National Assets.
Yes, of course. This is a great way to make a way to the final round that in the natural way, we are dealing with the question, the pandemic, friend or foe in building trust between the state and the companies. And how to do it, we would begin this time with Ms. Venstra, please.
Thank you for giving me that question, because it allows me also to build on what you so strongly saw on my face before. You already commented on Wojciech. Yeah, it was a healthcare crisis asks for solutions also wherever we can find them. And a concrete example I am extremely proud to share on behalf of my team is that, for example, when the pandemic hit us 1 year ago, we got a request from the Ministry of Health whether we could ensure that patients who have an immune disorder could get their treatments delivered to their homes. Can you imagine? You have an immune deficiency, are in a high risk of infection, and to get your medication, you need to go to a hospital in the time of a pandemic. It's bad enough you have a chronic disease, but then going there, that increased a lot of stress. So in this time, we tried to make it happen, and we managed. In 2.5 weeks, we were able to set this up. So that for us was a clear example how, even in a time of crisis, or maybe especially in a time of crisis, we could build trust by showing how we can then partner to drive solutions. And as said, I'm extremely proud of the team that made that happen within Takeda here in Poland. Looking forward, I also agree with the fact that it should not be so ad hoc. It was great that we could align in such an agile way, but we should find more systemic ways to collaborate by having everyone on the table and then move forward. And what my personal hope and wish is that examples like the one I just described already give enough trust to make sure that when we build those systemic solutions, we can indeed have a seat at the table. That is what we would hope. In that case, the pandemic is always going to be a foe for everyone on a personal level. Let no mistake about it. It has massively, massively impacted each and every one on physical and mental and economical levels. However, if we can find a silver lining following the fact that we need to collaborate, and we realize that even more, and that collaboration can pave the way for indeed sustainable partnership, then I would call that silver lining the small friend in this challenging situation.
Thank you very much. So the same question for Ms. Buchholz from Konfederacja Lewiatan.
Okay, so maybe wrapping up what Wojciech Krawczyk mentioned, desperate times call for desperate measures, but let us believe this is only, it is not a permanent situation, so we need to establish some formula that is going to address the questions related to COVID, because it's already 1 year with the pandemic, and also for the things that are non-COVID, and this is another category that should be taken into account, because pandemic cannot consume all our energy, because we need to move forward, and this is what is currently being discussed under the new Polish deal, what is currently discussed under National Recovery Plan, and I think that what Nienke Venstra is mentioning. So we need to wrap up all our experiences, also the one from COVID times, just to move forward. And this is why we strongly believe that we need this cooperation, because this is going to be new normal. So only partially our previous experience is going to be used, and now we need to create some new environment that is answering our new challenges, the one that were structural ones, systemic ones, but also the ones that are ahead of us still. That keeping in mind that we, for example, have remote work, we need to make most of it, but at the same time, we need to address, for example, psychological side of this challenge. So the things that we wouldn't be interested in solving this kind of issues if it wasn't for the COVID, but it's going to be our new normal. So this is why I would believe that we still need to sit and discuss, to map these questions, to map these challenges, to try to answer it definitely in a more systematic way than the one we already experienced during the previous year.
Thank you very much for that. From the perspective of Warsaw Stock Exchange and the listed companies, how does that look? How does the matter of being pandemic being a chance for mutual building of trust between businesses and state? Does it work out? Because there were some changes even on the stock market that made the way for the money quite easier, I think, latest times.
Yeah, so to be honest, in my view, this pandemic has just in a simple words, two faces. So one face, of course, is this negative for people, for the people they have the problems with not being in the office, remote just meetings and homework, etc. So it's not our natural environment. And this is the one thing from the perspective of just us as a human beings. But the other phase is business, and 2020 was really good for the exchanges all over the world. But for the Polish exchange, it was extremely good because we had a couple of things happen in Poland. Because of the effects of pandemic, economic effects, so National Bank of Poland decided to decrease the interest rates to record low levels. And this caused that the Polish citizens, they started to look for the new alternatives for just protecting their capital, because on the bank deposits, it is clear that you cannot just even protect your capital. But some of the Polish citizens, they want not only protect, but multiply the capital, and they look for the alternatives, and the exchange is one of these alternatives. And they looked at what we have on the market, that we have good financial instruments, that we have good companies, and the retail clients, they came to us. So in Poland, there were more than 80,000 new brokerage accounts open, and the old one, they were activated. So last year, 25% of generated turnover, that was the turnover of retail clients. So it was absolutely something new. It was the best parameters since 2009. When we had 27% stake in turnover of retail clients. So this is one thing. Then, of course, the new flow of the capital, not only from retail clients, but also institutional foreign clients, it increased the valuation of the companies. And also the companies, some of the companies, those COVID winners, I would say, they wanted to raise the capital for further development. So they organized SPO, IPO on the market. And on the other hand, we had the companies that they are, I would say, COVID losers, and they have the problems, and they need the new capital to stabilize their business. So they also decided to organize SPO, IPO. So everything activated the primary market on the stock exchange. So we can say that that the business is really good in this pandemic time. And also, it's worth underlining that as the exchange, we feel this responsibility for our clients, for these companies who are, I call them COVID losers. So we decided just to help them, and we decided to decrease our fees for 2021. So for those who lose their revenues, and of course there are some calculations, some parameters who can benefit from this price promotion, I would say. But this is also for building trust, that when we see that our clients that suffer from this pandemic situation, and we have a good business, so we would like to share with them some of our profits. So this is my description of what happened in 2020, and in this year there's also very active stock exchange markets, all markets. So I think that it will be also so we observe the continuation of the situation from 2020. And I hope that this year will be also very good for our stock exchange.
Thank you very much. Jerzy Bielewicz, we all have 2 more minutes, so maybe a quick roundup from your perspective. The pandemic, is it a chance for the better trust with the investors from Asia, and how to do it?
The answer is very, very obvious. Pandemia, it's a time of changes, huge changes, shifts in legal framework, in trade framework, in the relationship between the countries. So Poland has to be very dynamic on all these fields, from legal to financial to trade laws. Very, very dynamic. It's time of change and huge shift, and it's especially to our government. We've got this new Polish order, Nowy Polski Ład, that's coming up.
The New Deal.
The New Deal. We hear about, for example, just to. We hear about digital currencies, digital sovereign currencies. I wonder whether we go in this direction. I think it's a good direction. The European Central Bank just declared that digital euro could be introduced very quickly in 2 years, 2 to 4 years. So that's the time of changes. And our Achilles, our weak side is a legal system. We have to correct our legal system so it responds quickly to client needs, to companies' needs. It's very, very important if we'd like to become trade and logistic hub, and that's the way to go. To change what's around us, to invest in infrastructure, to help our friends from Asia to establish businesses here, and to cooperate with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the time is up for this particular panel. Thank you very much for taking part in it. It was very interesting. So our guests were Ms. Nienke Fenstra, General Manager of Takeda Poland, Ms. Izabela Olszewska, Management Board Member from Warsaw Stock Exchange, Ms. Sonia Buchholz, Chief Economist of Konfederacja Lewiatan, Wojciech Krawczyk, Deputy Director, Department of Analysis and Reporting in Ministry of State Assets, and Jerzy Bielewicz, Financier and Journalist in Gazeta Bankowa. Thank you all very kindly, and cordially. And I ask our viewers to watch more of those debates that are yet to come. Thank you all very much. Have a great day. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.